Hello, everybody, and welcome to Permaculture Smackdown, another episode. If you're not familiar with this show, every week, every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, myself and my co host, Mr. Paul Wheaton,
It's me.
do this show where we just talk about permaculture stuff. And today, Paul's like, "Hey, I watched Gracie's Backyard and took a shitload of notes." And I was like, "Hey, I watched that like 3 times. I love it." And so I'll take notes too, and we'll do a show about it. Or he asked if we could do a show about it today, and that's what we're gonna do. So, what do you got, Paul? How'd you like? How did you like it? Was this the first time you watched it?
This was the first time. I mean, I put it off because I wanted to make sure to record a podcast afterwards. And so then we've got the Peasant PDC going on right now. And we had some people here for the Schmoozeroo, specifically Julia Winter, who's oftentimes, on the show here with where you can kind of the peeps, the inner circle of peeps.
Yeah, just let's explain that real quick. For people that support Paul Wheaton's Patreon or the Permaculture Smackdown Club on thrivethrough.com, you get special access to, for our special audience, you get access to us where we can see you. We see what you're typing while we're live. They get to watch live, and we answer questions, things like that for those people. So go support us.
So I threw it out there to say that, somebody was saying like they wanted more while they're here. And so I threw it out like, well, on Sunday, when you don't have class, you don't have all the other stuff going on, there is a movie that I wanted to see. It's a permaculture movie, and I've been putting it off. But you got it. The problem is that it's a bright, beautiful day outside, but then you start at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and watch a movie and then record a podcast. So we ended up recording a 2 hour long podcast about it. And I don't know, it'll be out in a few days, I suppose. And then anyway, you then wrote to me, what was it, yesterday? And you said, how about this for a topic? And I can't remember what you even suggested, but I thought, weak.
Oh, Diatomaceous Earth.
Oh, that's not weak. Actually, that's that we could do it. That would, but what that would be a good one. Let's do that one next week.
Okay.
But for this week, I mentioned that I already still had my notes. They're still fresh and steamy.
It's right in the brain.
Yeah, and it was really good. And one of the big summaries I have is that, and one of the things I said during the podcast here was, I could see how somebody living in Missoula would be aware of Richard Perkins' stuff and aware of my stuff and choose to go intern all the way over in Sweden rather than come here.
Mm-hmm.
And then so Julia was on the podcast and she's like, well, wait, the stuff you're doing is way ahead of what he's doing. And it's like, well, in a way, but it's like the stuff that he's doing is going to seem really awesome to level 2 people. And the stuff I'm doing is going to seem really awesome to level 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
And mathematically, there's 1,000 times more people interested in, level 2 than level 5. So it's kind of like my stuff's going to seem kind of crazy, and it's going to seem, so, and I'm going to talk about the points here. And the other thing is that with the podcast, I started off with like saying like, what Richard's doing is excellent. That is awesome stuff.
Yeah, so guys, what we're talking about is Gracie's Backyard, which was it started as a Kickstarter to do this documentary style film of Richard Perkins' farm, Ridgedale Farm is what it's called in Sweden, and so both Paul and I were supporters of that Kickstarter. Did you have more to do with than just supporting it, like me? Am I lonely just supporting?
I supported the Kickstarter. I put my money in and got my video. But I also I had my Kickstarter going on at the same time last year, and I still told my peeps about his Kickstarter. So maybe I lost some money by doing that. But his stuff is this is an Olivier production, and his stuff is typically pretty good. Although I still haven't seen Permaculture Skills, and I think that would be a really good one too. And I also supported that one, all the same stuff. And it's the same kind of story. Like, I want to not watch it until I'm sitting down and I'm going to make a podcast. And so
I haven't seen Permaculture Skills.
Jocelyn wasn't in on this podcast because, and she pointed it out. She said, she says, I don't mind taking an hour to record a podcast, but whenever Paul does a podcast, it's like a 5-hour commitment, you know, because he makes everybody sit down and you've got like 2 hours of prep. And then it's like, if it's a movie, then you got to watch the whole movie like in the middle of the day. And then the podcast is like, you know, I feel like I might have a half an hour to say, but Paul goes on for 3 hours. And so it's kind of like, all right, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
So this will be a condensed version of the podcast that will eventually appear.
Good luck with that.
For those that don't know, Richard Perkins has a YouTube channel, and he puts out fantastic videos, very educational videos.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to start off. So I took notes of this whole thing, time-stamped notes, and if you actually go to the Permaculture Smackdown forums or the thread on the Permies forums, I've posted all these notes so you can take a look at them, and I'll post them here on the video as well. But it starts out 46 seconds into the show. It's got a sign and it says, "Hang your wet gloves here," and that totally reminded me of your place. Signs everywhere. This is what you do, stupid.
So I've had feedback that a couple of different people found our little notes and signs like that to be what they call it, passive aggressive. And it's like, okay, cool, then I'm passive aggressive, whatever, fuck off. But this actually relates to what we call the pig bucket problem, and as the solution, then we think it's a 2-pronged solution: more labels on everything, you know, including instructions, and tons of that. And man, Jocelyn is awesome with that. I love it.
Me too.
It's like, I think that when people get here, everything gets to be so much easier with all of the little, and we can facilitate people coming and going so much more. And they're, you know,
for me, it eliminates okay, I want to use this thing. What do I like? What's the procedure? Do I got to go ask someone? Are they picky about this? Like, especially when you're new to a place and you're a little intimidated by people and things like that. It just alleviates all that stuff. There's a sign, read it. Oh, okay. And now I know exactly what's expected. I don't get it being whatever aggressive.
Yeah, I don't get that either. I don't understand. It's like, but it's fair. Some people are not going to like it. I relish it. It just seems like the more of that we get up, the better everything goes. And it's like some of the stuff Jocelyn's on like her 3rd or 4th iteration. Like, the previous sign wasn't detailed enough, and so now, and it wasn't artistic enough. And
it's not like there's a manual of all the rules you have to read when you get to Paul's property. It's not like that. It's like there's a manual everywhere you go, and it's short and just a basic understanding of how things work.
Right. And I think it's important to do that. So like when you're in there dropping a steamer in the willow bank there, it's like there's a little thing there you can read. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it gives you something to do.
How it works.
And you have a blackboard where you can write shit. Like, anything that you're thinking about while pooping, go ahead and write here.
Notes to all the others.
There were, next, pretty quick into the video, there were a couple of things I noticed. I was like, man, I don't think Paul's going to like seeing this. So one of those was 1 minute and 40.
Before you go on to the next item, first I got to wrap up what I was just saying. I was saying 2 prongs. The second prong is to have people be in here longer than 2 years. That's the second piece. So all the labels and notes and everything, plus having people that are here longer than 2 years. Those are the 2 ingredients for solving the pig bucket problem. But back to the note that you saw, did you notice that they're in Sweden, but that note was in English?
I did notice that. That's because a lot of the people that come to intern are from America. That's why I assumed it was all in English. And they all spoke English.
Okay, I thought that they had a lot of people there, and there was like at least 2 people from America, but I kind of got the impression that there were like like some of the people were probably from Sweden.
And
So
they're also in Europe, and that's kind of the common language in Europe, right? Like it's because there's lots of different languages, but a common one that most people know because of the English is English.
yeah,
And so it's one that you can write a sign for, and you don't have to do it in many different languages. It's like
right.
most people are going to
And
be able to
and
do
it seems like as they were driving around in town, you'd see a lot of signs in Swedish, but there was a lot of stuff also in English.
it. Yep.
And so we were kind of so for those of us that were watching it, we kept pausing the movie to write notes and point at stuff and talk about it. So, but the thing that English seemed to be this common core for the most part was like pretty profound. All right, now go on to your next thing.
So just a 1 minute, 25 seconds into the video, it shows a dog that's chained up. And I thought, ooh, I don't know what Paul thinks about dogs being chained up, because the next thing they show is some poultry meat birds that are inside of a chicken tractor, a Salatin style chicken tractor. And I know you had issues with that.
Well, I've written extensively about the Salatin style stuff. You're right. I don't like a dog chained up. I mean, you chain up, especially if it's a livestock guardian dog. I don't know what kind of dog was that. I don't remember.
It was ugly.
Okay.
It didn't look like, I don't know if it was a livestock guardian dog. It looked like a hunting dog to me.
Okay.
I'm not sure what breed it was.
But I kind of do feel like if you're going to raise, let's say, chickens, it's kind of like you really can't do it. Like oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to keep a predator on the property with, oh, now you're going to go pull it up. I'm going to keep a predator on the property with my chickens. Okay, there's this dog. Okay, it does not look like a livestock guardian dog.
No.
Um,
That looks like a hunting dog to me.
yeah, I don't know. That seems kind of weird. And then the other thing is, I don't like the chain up. I kind of feel like, in fact, here at my place, I like the idea that someday dog people will come by and they'll build like a fenced-in paddock just for dogs, and it's like probably junk pole fence, and about the size of a backyard, so fairly small. And it's like I would much rather see a dog be in something like that than something where it's kind of like on a leash,
Right.
or on a rope tied up, or penned up in somebody's rig.
Now, I get it for like workshops for sure, because if you got a dog on the property, maybe it's a livestock guardian dog, and it really wants to guard this livestock, it might have some problems with strangers and things like that, and maybe you'd want to keep it in an area because of that. You don't want, your guests getting bitten or whatever, or
Right.
taken for a wolf. Here's a glimpse of that shot I was talking about. We were talking about, please hang wet gloves here. Do not put them with dry gloves. And that's English.
Okay.
Maybe they just made that sign for the video.
I think my first note about the whole movie, out of my list of notes, it's an hour and 15 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know. I thought it was great. It's really good. The music's great. The videography is amazing.
Oh yeah.
And the messages are awesome. I kind of feel like there were times where I kind of felt like I wanted to see more of a how-to on some of these things.
Yeah.
Because then it's like it's more of an educational video, but it's more of an inspiration video. And there at the end, there was some really kick-ass, important, critical stuff that's like, oh, good. I'm glad that they said that, because it is a success story. And like, what's your recipe for success? So he talks about that. But I was kind of a little bit like, wow, an hour and 15 minutes. I kind of feel like if it's going to be on a DVD, shouldn't it be at least 90 minutes?
I thought it was perfect for a promotional video, like a promotional, this is what my farm is, this is why we do it, come and join us. Like, it's perfect for that. It's not perfect for, this is exactly how to do this on your property. That's not what this movie is.
Right. Right. And I think a good permaculture video doesn't say this is how you have to do it on your property, but it does kind of like what these guys are doing. This is what we decided to do on our property.
Right.
And that's, to me, that's 1,000 times more valuable. Um,
But
so
you wanted a deeper dive into the exact systems they're using, how they're doing it, then like it's there, but it's not there in detail. So there's a lot of things that he explains that are
yeah,
really super important things, and they're just brushed over. Like it's very quickly added in. And you're like, if you know what he's talking about, it's awesome. But if you don't know what he's talking about, there's a lot of parts there where you want to pause it, go look up what they just said, because you want to understand that it makes the movie a lot better. If I'm watching this movie without understanding permaculture at all, a lot of what he's talking about is lost on me, right? But if I
okay.
know permaculture, it makes total sense. It's
I
perfect.
want to ask a question to our inner circle that's here, that can type, and that is that, like, because I'm about to put out a Kickstarter, and it's like I've worked hard to make sure that not only fill out 2 hours, but it's like this is going to be my best DVD ever. But and Timothy is saying he's buying it. He doesn't even give a shit. I don't give a fuck what you put in it. I'm buying it. I'm going to buy 10. So, but I supported this Kickstarter because it's like a DVD. I kind of thought it was going to be like 90 minutes to 2 hours. And so maybe I'm being a whiny bastard here. And so it's kind of like, okay, I want to hear from people. I want you to type it in. Like, if you're going to support a Kickstarter and they're supplying a DVD, how long do you think the movie is going to be? How long do you think it's going to be? I mean, I do know that there's stuff out there where you go and you buy the DVD and it's a 30-minute program on the DVD. And it's like, okay, that, but I'm kind of, but when I get that, I kind of feel a little bit like, I wish you'd said more about that before I bought it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, all right. So I
Or
need,
I'm looking at the DVD's file structure in my computer going, did they include like a shitload of files and that's why they couldn't fit more than 30 minutes on this video?
so I was feeling pretty adamant that, like, when we do this, bare minimum of 90 minutes. Like, if we don't have 90 minutes of content, don't even make it.
I think if you're making DVDs, yes, that is the case. I think things for like educational videos, they could be 5 minutes. It all depends on the content and the presenter, how quickly and precisely
Yep.
you can get the information across.
Yeah. So let's see.
Timothy says, my criteria would be
Whoa.
whatever gets the knowledge across. Before you even finish the question, I was thinking 30 minutes would do if it taught me what I want to know. That's similar to what I was saying, I think. Eric says, I think it kind of depends on what it is about and the level you are providing the DVD. If you are providing a 90-minute video or more, I would certainly be willing to come in at $25 to $30. So I guess a shorter 30-minute video would be like, I'll do $5-10 for that.
Another thing is that there have been some DVDs and some YouTube channels recently that have been doing really well, and I was kind of talking to Julia about it when she was here, and Julia's position is that after a hard day at work, she gets home and she's totally cool with watching 15 minutes of some homesteader family with cute animals doing cute things. And it's all about the cute.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the giggly children and the cute. And I kind of got the feeling that she was trying to suggest that I do that. It's like, I ain't got any cute over here.
All my cute's brown.
Yeah. So, and I feel like, like I've been putting out some rocket oven videos lately. Everything that I do is to serve a very exact purpose, like convey a certain bit of knowledge, which I think either isn't there or what's out there is either wrong or off, and it's like, okay, well then I'm glad I get to present it my way. And I kind of feel like I put information out there to serve a very specific, like I got to correct some misconceptions about how to, or something like that.
You definitely do that, but you also do have some cute in there. And it's for the engagement purposes to keep people engaged and liking the video. You have comedy. Every once in a while there'll be a cartoon guy that pops in and he's telling you something, but it's cute. You could have just put an audio of you saying it, kind of thing.
I'll go to a cartoon kind of a thing because I don't have anything else, and I can do a shitty drawing, and so I'll do a shitty drawing to kind of like, okay, here's my point. Here's how I need the shitty drawing to make the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
And so I'll do that. I don't know. I think a lot of people might argue with you about whether or not it's cute.
Well, it's entertaining. I mean, yeah, I don't know if cute's I think it's cute. Like when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, that was kind of cute. You have like I'm not talking about like a drawing of a rocket mass heater. I'm talking about where it's like a little pop-up of Paul, like a cutout picture of Paul with a little comic book blur, thing comes up telling you that's cute shit.
Yeah. We call them puppet notes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all right. But we got to squeeze in the information. We got to get it up there.
There's definitely information.
And then we needed to be able to say, okay, this is a comment on the video from Paul. This is a comment on the video from Erica. And this is a comment on the video from Ernie.
Right.
We had we did that. We came up with the puppet model. So each person can say a different thing about what's going on.
Yeah.
So that way it's like, otherwise we all have to agree on it or something.
Timothy says you can fill an hour with demo cooking and fluff. That is true. You can definitely do that. I don't like that. Now
and
there was
love that, and I think in fact I think most people love that. Like I keep.
Well, this movie was a great example of it. There's fluff in there, but it's beautiful fluff.
It's beautiful, but it's also like I liked it, and I don't generally sign up for the fluff and pictures and poetry. I'm going to sign up because I want to see the facts, and it's like they've got a lot of very cool stuff going on there, and in fact it was a little weird with the video. We kept stopping it and saying, who the fuck is that? And so then like early on there's that gal with the red hair, and it's like and I said, well, I think she's like 16. She looks really young. And then Julia, who's also a redheaded gal, says, no, it's because she's got the red hair and she's not wearing any makeup. And so then she looks younger than she really is. So she's probably like 21.
A lot of the interns that they show in the documentary didn't show their names.
Yeah, no, none of them.
Well, it said some of their names. There were some that said their names,
like out loud. Like
yeah, and I imagine a lot of that is because people want to remain a little anonymous.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. And later it turned out that Julia was right and I was wrong. The woman is, probably in her 20s and just looks young. And then it turns out, and it was the first time she showed up, and it's like, okay, she's doing this stuff. And I thought, oh, it must be the Richard Perkins' daughter, and then it's like, then it turns out by the time you get to the end of the movie, you realize she's an intern and there's got to be like 9 interns there. Yeah. Something like that.
I was confused. The most confusing person in there for me was, who is this lady with the baby?
And then at the end, it becomes clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on because we're just beginning. So the chicken tractor thing, what are your thoughts on chicken tractors really quick? Like you said, level 2, right? Like that's the
level. Yeah, level 2 are like, Salatin pins. Those are the ways to go. Now chicken tractor, those weren't chicken tractors, those were Salatin pins. And they were like by the book.
Yeah.
For Salatin.
They're for poultry. They're for pasture raised poultry.
And it cuts your feed bill about 20%. You can't have shrubs or trees in there with the chickens, which is part of their natural habitat. Plus they're feeding them chicken food, it's probably organic chicken food, but it's like the thing that bugs me is that if it's organic chicken feed, that meant that it was raised organically and something went wrong, and it's of such low quality that it cannot legally be sold as human food. And so it's kind of like, So it's like what you only thing you do is feed it to chickens. And I kind of feel like I would like to raise chickens better than that.
Well, I like to say that I really like the Joel Salatin style of raising pastured poultry. The reason for it is the quality of the meat. So it's a lot easier to market and sell those big breasts than it is to market and sell breasts of a chicken that's free range and running around. And that's why they do it that way. So it's the most humane way I can think of doing it, where you still get those big fat breasts that sell. And and pasture poultry is a great product to be the first product on your farm, um, as far as getting income into the farm. And that's exactly what Richard Perkins does. They did that. It was his first product. It is the staple product. It makes the most money so that he can do all these other projects.
All right. I wrote an article about raising chickens because I did pastured poultry for
Hmm.
years, and I didn't like it. It
Yeah.
bugged me, and I wanted to do something better, and that's when I came up with, I'm doing paddock shift for all these other animals. Why can't I do paddock shift for chickens?
Yeah.
So then, so you're saying it's the best that you can think of, and it's like, I think paddock shift is better. And now you're talking about Cornish rock cross chickens, which, as demonstrated in the movie, the ugliest chicken alive. And it's like,
The feathers are, they don't grow feathers everywhere, and yeah, they're ugly.
but they're also the most delicious. And so it's like, no, I get it.
And they get so fat so quick they can't move very well. Like that's another thing is they're bred for what they're being used in
So
used for.
I want it, but the bottom line is like right now, the big berm out front, the big hugelkultur berm that we got out front, is now just pumping out growies, and it's like we got a lot of food there, but a lot of stuff that's not food. That it's like we're still building the organic matter, but definitely next year we're doing a full garden there, and it's like we're still trying to finish up these fucking paddocks here because he's using all electric stuff.
Mm.
And I just not only, and I've got some comments about that later, but I just kind of feel like I got to the point where it's like, I don't want electric fence anymore. It's a electric fence. And not only do most people just cannot wrap their head around how this stuff works. It's like oil and water.
How electric fence works?
Yeah, they can't do it. They just can't do it. I don't know how many farms I've been to and they're not doing it right.
Okay.
And it's like we had some people that were here that were doing electric fence. They're using my electric fence. And it's like, the whole thing where the one guy is like, this electric fence stuff sucks. And it's like, so I go up and I look at it and it's like, you got all these grasses touching the electric fence, shorten it out. He says, no, I don't. I'm fucking standing right there. And I'm like, I can see.
He didn't grab a weed eater
grasses.
and go around the grass line and cut down.
I can see 200 grasses from right here that are touching it. I can hear them popping because they're touching it and shorting it out. He says, there's not a single blade of grass touching right here at your feet. That one right there. Well, that's just one. There's hundreds.
Yeah.
But even one will short it out. But it's
absolutely.
like it was bizarre.
But that's just a learning curve, right?
No, this is, some people just cannot understand how it works. It's not possible. They can't do it. And I don't know how many farms I've been to where it's like they just do not understand how the fence works. So it gets all shorted out. One place, the electric fence part, usually nowadays you can only buy it where it's that black and white stuff, because the animal can see that and be like, whoa, I remember that stuff. I don't want to fucking touch that. But it's like, I remember one place they got it and it's green.
Yeah.
It's just solid green. It's like, oh yeah, we want to stealth zap you. We want you to come over here and get zapped. No, it's a psychological barrier. The animal has to experience getting zapped once and is like, recognizes what it looks like. They're like, I don't want to ever touch that shit again.
It works really well with pigs. Pigs are really smart about it. They get zapped a
All
couple times and they're like, "Oh, I
the
get it."
pigs are not smart about it if the fence doesn't work.
Oh
You
yeah,
know
yeah.
what? If it's all shorted out and it's camo green, it's like no, it isn't going to work. And I've been to I don't know how many farms were, and I also been to a farm of somebody that's a very famous, lovely, lovely person, all about treating your animals with great respect. And she had her goats in a pen that was like 8x8 electric. No, you can't do that. No, if you want to do an 8x8 pen that's wood, that's fine. But this is a psychological barrier. You basically put this animal into a torture chamber. So no, I kind of feel like when it comes to electric, I want to improve the quality of what I have here. I want it to be a plethora of life and awesomeness and beauty. And electric fence just generally doesn't fit with that really well. But you add in like woofers or gappers or boots or people that are new and or they're just stopping by for a couple of days and want to help out, the Gilligans. And it's like you take people that have been working with electric fence for 2 years and they still don't get it. How can I expect somebody who's been here for 2 hours to get it?
Right.
And it's like, and it's the thing is that you think that you can teach them. And the thing I'm trying to be so emphatic about right now is there are relatively intelligent, perfectly average intelligence people who just cannot understand how an electric fence works. After a year, 2 years, they still don't get it. And they just think electric fence sucks. And it's like, so I think that's something at some point you got to embrace. I'm going to go so far as to say half the population cannot possibly comprehend how an electric fence works. There's just something about it. They can't get their head wrapped around it. They just can't do it. And so it's like, all right, now we go back to the thing of like, when I put up an electric fence, and I had that poultry netting, that electronet stuff, and I would always mow first before putting the fence up because some of those wires are just like the lowest wires are just like 2.5 inches off the ground,
Or they're on the ground. A lot of them are just right on the ground.
well, the bottom one should be with no wire in it, just totally plastic.
Yeah.
But it could be ground wire, that'd be all right. But the bottom line is that it's like so you got to mow kind of low, a little lower than I really want to mow, before you put the fence up, and then you got to move the fence before the grass gets any taller than that.
Weed eater is part of the package. Like, so with the solar panel, the battery, and the fencing is a weed eater as well. And you always just weed eat anyway. Okay, so but there are advantages to having electrical fences as opposed to solid fences, especially with paddock shifting and adding multiple animals. So you might need small paddock shifts for some animals and want to expand that fence for other animals that are coming in. And so there is the advantage of having a mobile fence, not necessarily the electric fence, but there is the big advantage of having a mobile. It allows you to shift the paddocks a lot, be a lot more fluid with shifting paddocks on your property as opposed to having solid fencing everywhere. Now, you could just say, well, I could just open up another gate and that just doubles the size. They're all inside each other. That you could certainly do that.
I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of ways. I mean, electric fence has got its upsides if you know how to use it correctly.
Yeah.
But I just kind of, I don't want to go into it again.
All right.
Yeah.
So the next thing I saw a camper in the background, and I thought, are the workers living in this thing? It does not look like workers are living in it, but maybe.
Well, they did have that one that they were building, the one that's kind of a treehouse-ish one.
Oh yeah, that. But that wasn't for the workers. That was to rent out.
I got the impression it was for the workers, and then because they said that they would rent it out for 2 weeks, and the money they would make would be more than the amount of money that they would get for
harvesting the road.
But I kind of got the impression that they would rent it out for 2 weeks to somebody that was working there.
Maybe that is the case. What I got the impression of was a tourism renting out, because he was talking about you rent it out, you can go work with our interns, and you can eat whatever food you want. So the benefit of you, there's so many benefits of that. I can upgrade up the prices of renting out this treehouse, and it ends up making more money than if I were harvesting this wood for the money.
Right. Now that's at the end. Here at the beginning of the movie, I mean, we haven't even made it 8% of the way through my notes on page 1, and I got
Oh
3
yeah,
pages of notes. But it's a 10-hectare farm, so that's about 25 acres on slope. Oh, I was so glad to see it on slope. It just seems like I keep seeing stuff over and over and over again that's out in flatland, and it's like, I'm sorry, the flat stuff floods.
and the way he's using the slope is great. And he goes into that. That's one of those examples of if you didn't know what he was talking about, you wouldn't get it. But if you knew what he was talking about, it was crystal clear.
He said that they chose the location because it was close to international transport,
Yep.
which is exactly the reason why I chose my location.
Yeah.
And so we're less than an hour from the Missoula International Airport. And it's because, he was thinking that he wanted to, in time, cater to people that would fly in, which is exactly what we were doing.
Yep. Man, you're way ahead of me. There's all kinds of stuff.
How many years was he there? Like when they took the film, based on stuff that he said, I was thinking he's been there 10 years.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me.
But it was never clear. And Julia felt like it's more like he's been doing permaculture stuff for 10 years, but he's been on that property for 5 years.
That may be. They kept talking about or a couple of times they talked about the debt because they had debt. They had they're working off a debt-based system where they are getting loans from the bank to do this stuff, and then through their efforts paying it off. So I am thinking is also fairly fresh. At least all the advancements and the way they've branched out is fresh. I think Pastor Poultry's been doing for a while.
Okay. All right. But yeah, I'm going to guess 10 years. At no point do they make it clear what it is, but I'm willing to guess 10 years. Now you mentioned that you saw, we were doing the same thing. Like at some point you saw like everybody there, and there's like 12 people there or so. We didn't pause and count, but I'm guessing about a dozen.
When they had their meeting, it looked like about a dozen. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then you're like, okay, so Richard and his wife and 2 kids, they're probably in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's all these other people, and it's like, well, where do they live? And then you kind of see this trailer whiz by in the background, and then some other kind of hippie habitat stuff whiz by. So if you're an intern, probably not the best digs.
Well, when they were interviewing interns, it looked like they were interviewing them in a home space that looked really nice. It was wood and everything. But
Right.
I imagine they didn't really want to show that in the documentary because that's something that people, especially farmers, are really careful about now because the government is such fucking assholes when it comes to this stuff. You got to be careful about how you're housing people and who you're housing and why you're housing them, and the intern shit is becoming a nightmare. I mean, so it's something that it's like we don't really want to talk about this or show it, publicly on a big video.
Very good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
Market garden.
Well, hold on. You said it was a 10-hectare farm. Now, what he said was when he picked out the farm, he wanted forestry, pasture land, good condition buildings, and close to an international airport. Those were his 4 criteria.
Yeah.
Forestry, pasture land, good condition buildings, and international airport.
Right. And I'm just picking out the things that I think are the most important. It was a long time ago, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, that I got asked to come out and give advice to a group. They owned this patch of land. It was probably 20 acres or something. And they're like, can you give us some advice on what to do here? And it was flat and next to a river. And I said, my advice is sell it and get something good. The thing is, if you're on flat land and this is what happened to them every year, it floods. So what, you build up the organic matter in your soil. You get past all of the herbicides that were used in the decades past,
Or upstream.
and then, well, see, that's my point.
Yeah.
You can't. Every year you get a reset on the soil, and you don't know what the fucking story is on that soil.
Yeah.
And so it's probably loaded with persistent herbicides, so you can't grow anything but grass. And so it's like,
It's better to get the property with the slope than have to truck in a bunch of material to build the slope yourself.
right. The other thing is that in a colder climate, if you're on slope, you can do something to prevent frost pockets.
Yep.
You can, I mean, it's like, okay, if there any frost comes here, I'm sending it down the hill. I'm not going to hold it here. Whereas if you're on a flatland, it's like you got a frost pocket, you can't send it anywhere. It's frost is fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
So you can't make a spot that's warmer. It's like, well, you screwed yourself there, didn't you?
What I don't like, what I really love about slope that you don't find on flatland is the ability to have water flow, to be able to do ponds in different levels and have water flow between. Like that's ultimate.
There's that too.
Um,
So I was just super pleased to see that he was on slope.
yeah, me too.
And I thought that the thing with the airport was huge too. But go ahead.
Another thing I saw was he had a ATV, a gas powered ATV that they were using, and he talked about engineering when he's engineering like the egg mobile, these different farming equipments or buildings that are all movable. He engineers them so that they can be moved with that machine on purpose. Like that's his focus. It's got to be light enough to be able to be moved by this machine.
Yeah. I thought that was really smart. I mean, it's unfortunate that it was a gasoline powered ATV.
You'd rather see an electric ATV.
Yeah. I would like that.
Of course, then you got now the same problem with electric fences, right? People are shorting shit out and don't know how the electric system works. Or are you saying?
Well, I like an electric ATV. I mean, when I was on Mount Spokane, I had something that was like an electric. They called it a monster golf cart back then. Now they just call it a UTV or ATV, side by side. But it was totally silent, and I used it all day, every day. I loaded it up with my tools for what I'm going to go do, and I go out there and I do it. And that thing just kept working and working. It worked great. It's like you just couldn't seem to hurt it.
Yeah.
And it just all day, every day, it was magnificent. And I avoided firing up the tractor because the tractor, of course, was really loud. And it's like, when I got to this property, I thought, I'm not going to buy a tractor. I'm going to just, they now have these ATVs that are, or UTVs, the side-by-sides. They now have them that are 30 horsepower, where the one I had was 3 horsepower. And my tractor was a 45 horsepower. And I kind of thought I can drag, stuff around or do whatever I need with a 30 horsepower rig. That'll be snazzy. That'll be great. No, it was a mess. Anybody want to buy an electric ATV?
What I hate about the ATVs is how fucking expensive they are. It is ridiculous how expensive they are. First of all, to buy them is expensive. 15 grand for like it's like a quarter car. It's like that's too much alone. You can get them used for like 5 grand, but replacing the parts break on those things all the time, especially when you have interns running around on them. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So they build stocks and all kinds of stuff with them. Yep, way too expensive. Peter's got a question for us. Sorry I'm behind, but I'm wondering where I can find information Paul has written about electric fencing and Salatin-style chicken tractors. I never knew anyone thought these things were not optimum. What are the alternatives? So you want to just plug a couple?
All right. So for the, first of all, I want to express that I believe that Salatin has never built a chicken tractor. He has built a chicken pen. And so then there's a Salatin style pen. A chicken tractor is like a Salatin pen, but it's much smaller. And you put far fewer chickens in it. And then I think if you go to richsoil.com/raising-chickens.jsp, I think that's my chicken article, or I think you can Google just raising chickens, and I think I used to be #1 for that search. I don't know where I'm at now.
Chickens, Paul Wheaton. I'll probably do it. Most of
Sure.
your articles are on Permies.com
Well, the big articles are at Rich Soil.
or richsoil.com.
Big, long articles are at Rich Soil. The stuff about electric fence, I'm not sure if I've really written anything about electric fence at this time, but it's kind of like, the other thing is, even on Mount Spokane, where I was doing a lot with electric fence, then there were two people there that kept. So the idea is that you got like this thing that's kind of like this, and then the wire kind of goes through it, and it's loose, and then you keep it tight at one point, and it just pulls the wire through on an as-needed basis. And then I had two different women on the site where what they did is that they get the wire through, and then they'd wrap it a few more times. And I explained to them, no, that makes that cuts the lifespan of that wire by 90%.
Yeah.
And so all those little fibers, those little wiry fibers that are in there, they break. And eventually they stop conducting, because it's like there's enough breaks in one point that the whole wire is pretty much useless.
Yep.
So please stop doing that. And they wouldn't. I mean, by the time I left the property, they were still doing it. Months, 4, 5, 6 months. They just kept doing it.
You guys are costing me so much money.
Yeah, but they didn't care. They didn't buy it. They didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
So they didn't give a shit. And they just felt I was stupid. And it's like, so even on my own property, it wouldn't get worked out. And it's like, so I keep going up there and undoing it afterwards. And then they're getting angry at me because they think I'm doing it wrong. And it's like, look, here's where we bought it. Here's where it says, don't ever fucking do what you're doing. Oh, that's just dumb. That's just one opinion. I'm at least one other person from these people, the manufacturers, So it's like, it's bizarre.
All right, moving on.
Let's move on.
One of the first things in this movie I noticed when you first see Gracie, you're thinking, man, this girl's lucky. So lucky to be able to live like this and be raised like this. It was heartwarming to me to see it. That was one of the first thoughts I had when they introduced Gracie.
It did weave her through the whole movie.
Yeah. Yep, she was just in it, which I'm glad. I'm glad it wasn't a movie where it's like, here's Gracie nonstop. This is all Gracie's doing. I'm glad that it wasn't that, because that's what I first thought it was going to be when I saw the Kickstarter. What did you think of the quick cut greens harvester? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about. I thought it was all right. I mean,
drill powered.
Okay, to answer your question, let me go to my next note, which is kind of in a way what you're talking about, and that is that they have a market garden, but they still kind of grow everything in rows.
Yep.
And I thought a fascinating thing was the guy who was their market gardener guy, who it sounds like he had taken a PDC there, and it's possible that he had been an intern there. And then Richard said, why don't you run the market garden now? And it kind of sounded like he's running the market garden, and because he's running the market garden, then he gets a cut of the action. But okay, so they got a market garden there, and they say it's no dig, and it's like they had a broad fork out there. I saw them digging at one point, and not only that, but the ground looked like it looked tilled. It looked it. I mean, I'm not sure it was, but it looked like, man, they really tilled that.
Yeah. They did, but they didn't rototill it. You saw what they were using, right?
The broad fork.
Yeah. They're using broad fork.
Yeah. And so but the ground, so they're using a broad fork, but the ground looked tilled. So
here he is using this thing, but yeah, right here is where the ground all looks tilled up.
Now, in this particular case, it's like, yeah, the harvest is going to go like what, 20 times faster than if you're doing it by hand. Now, here's the thing that bugged me is it's like these are broad rows, and so a lot of people prefer broad rows over narrow rows or single rows.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I wish there was polyculture. I wish that they'd do it like at least 3 or 4 species together instead of just one. But yeah, if you're going to use that contraption like that salad harvester thing, then that's you're like monocrop is your only choice. But I would much rather that they did something else, and then you have to harvest it a more difficult way. Like do a polyculture and then harvest it a more difficult way.
I think I like the rows, but I'm agreeing with, I wish the rows were thinner, like as thin as that machine was. So it's that machine's width, and then the next row is another plant instead of multiple rows with that same machine would harvest. Um, I for a market garden, I just think that for harvesting, for profitability, for getting the job done and getting on to other things, I like the rows. I just like them close with many other rows of things surrounding them. But I do like the rows. Okay, so he says he's got an enterprise of perennial crops and pasture to create super nutrient based foods that would sell locally. So that's what he's focusing on. Um, his main enterprise is pasture raised broilers and pastured eggs, with the market garden being upscaled. So the market garden is not his main profit; it's the pastured broilers and then eggs secondary to that. What do you think about the Eggmobile? So basically, an Eggmobile, for those that don't know, it's a big chicken house that's on a trailer usually, and then they set up electric fence around wherever they're putting the egg layers, that chicken coop. They put up electric fence around that area, so that's where they can range. Free range around is within that electric fence. If you could do it a different way, what would it look like for you is what I'm curious about. Because if you're not using the electric fence and you have solid fences,
Yeah.
you're dumping them. You're basically moving the tractor to like the entrance of that fence and opening the door at that entrance, and then they can free range in there, and then you close it up and move into the next one the next
Right.
day.
So it's exactly like paddock shift, and if they're in one paddock, then what you do is you open the door to the next paddock. They all race over to the next paddock, and then you drag the shelter over. But I think an important thing is like, okay, now earlier we said something about like the stuff that they're doing is of interest to level 2, and basically I need to add to that to say, because what they're doing is very level 4, and it's like the stuff that I'm doing is of interest to people level 5, because what we're doing is level 7. So if we're doing stuff at level 7, it seems fucking nuts to people that are at level 2. It doesn't seem cool to them at all. It seems crazy and stupid. Now, one of the things that they're doing is that they're loading up food and they're hauling it into town and they're selling it. And then there's a lot to be said about the interns and then doing the PDCs, and they're an educational center, and like, how much, what's their income model? And granted, they've got an income model. They're paying the debts. They're working hard. So hats off to them. They're making it work. They're doing great stuff. They are. And I guess that an important distinction for me is that if you're going to go sell your food to those people, you're now hip deep in a whole bunch of laws that are designed for much larger scale shit.
Yep.
And I kind of feel like that the amount of money you get is, it's going to be hard to work it and make a profit.
Yep. And they're doing something that you don't like, which is the delivery service, right?
So what I think is the thing to do is it's like, all right, they got 12 people living there. And like, let's say they got 12 people living there year round. And then they do a PDC each year, and then maybe they have a few other events. And then let's say that they've got a couple of structures where people rent them out, and they get to eat next to everybody else. So like, let's say that on average they need to feed 20 people that are there. Mm-hmm. So I would say grow enough food to feed more than 20 people. Mm-hmm. And so then and then the way that you make your money is not by selling people food, but by people that are coming and eating it on site.
They did address that. They had said basically when they were doing the deliveries, they were talking about the CSA and how they would go into town to deliver the produce in town because they got far more customers doing that than would actually go to the farm and buy. That's where they could find the profit. If they just did it with people coming to the farm, they weren't making enough to make it happen.
Well, I do think it's good to have a profit model, and it sounds like they do, which is difficult and challenging as is. Oh, it says they don't do CSA anymore. This is Josh telling us this.
They do a RICO program. I don't know what the RICO program is. Do you?
I don't. But the thing is that it's kind of like CSA, farmers market, selling to restaurants. So many of these things, it's like you just end up letting it go because it's like you end up not even making minimum wage. You're working crazy long hours and shit like that. It's like just and you're thinking constantly like you're going to build your business, and so a lot of these it's like they just let it go. And I like the idea of I like the GERT system. You know, you get to the point where you're raising more food than you can possibly eat on the land. Mm-hmm. And so then you have an excess and you sell the excess. But really it's
there's no stress to sell the excess. Yourself.
So rather than a model where it's like, I mean, you can, you know, if you want to sell food off site, that's cool. But I also kind of think that what were they saying something about how like they didn't want to sell food? Yeah, they did not want to sell food for a premium price. They wanted to sell food for the standard price, which is the same kind of thing that Fukuoka is into. Now, keep in mind what Sepp Holzer ended up doing, because he tried selling his food and eventually he would sell it off of his property, but he got so much grief about it that he stopped selling food, stopped selling seeds, stopped all of that stuff because he was just getting fined into oblivion. And so instead what he did is that he gave people tours of his property and they would steal food. And so then it's like, okay, so now he's not being regulated because people are stealing from him. You know, there's already regulations about people stealing. So it's like, you know, don't need any more. So he's growing food for his own consumption, but people are stealing it. Now, I just kind of think that it's kind of like, granted, a person can do a permaculture system and they can go and sell the food. Like they could say, my food might possibly cure cancer. It's a polyculture food. And by the way, when we harvested these carrots, we didn't kill any ground animals or ground nesting birds like they do with the machine harvested stuff. All of our stuff was harvested by hand. So maybe you can get double or triple the price. Maybe you can get 5 times the price because it's permaculture food, because it grew in a polyculture, the way food's supposed to be grown. But even more than that, it's like, you know, what do you do if, you know, I like the idea of having those people come here, hang out for a week, and we'll feed you. You know, I'd much rather play that game. Then it's hyper local. You're never getting up at 3 a.m. to pick a bunch of food and polish the fuck out of it, and then put it into fancy containers and then drive it into town at a specified time. Right. And there's like so many things that could go wrong. And it's like, when you're working with Gilligan's, it's like, oh man, all the comedy just starts to unravel. Well, I don't want to get up at 3 a.m.
Mhm.
It's like, well, it's your fucking job, and it's like, well, you know what? I can get up at 4 a.m. and I can still get it done. Okay. So let me sleep another hour. And next thing you know, oh, yeah, we just didn't go into town. It was like a hassle. Sorry. Yeah.
So what Richard does, or at least the way it was explained or it sounded, was very much similar to what Prometheus did in West Virginia. Or the idea is all enterprise. So each person on the farm, the way this works at Perkins is you sign up for an internship, you pay for an internship, you go there, you do the internship. If we like you, we will invite you to manage an enterprise here. And
Yeah.
if you're good at managing the enterprise, then we will start to pay you. And here's what he said. He said, all enterprises on the farm run together, but can also be run as solo enterprises. Every enterprise can be scaled up to provide a full family income, be productive and profitable on the farm.
Yeah.
And I think I still think that model is the way to go. You you have all these enterprises on your farm. Everybody that comes in, let me see your business plan. You're going to do a business, and or maybe it's an internship, and then we do the business plan thing, or I help you build a business plan to keep you on the farm after your internship's done, and then you're just in charge of running that enterprise. Now, highly beneficial to work with the other people running enterprises because you can share resources and work together. That's what permaculture. That's what's great about permaculture is everything works together. Um, or you can run it as your own solo thing, but it's up to you to make the best decisions. What if CSA is best for you or not? You got to figure that out. Let's see your business plan. Let's do it. Let's try it out. So I think that's the way to go.
So yeah, layered symbiotic business model.
Yeah.
And so you could have 80 different businesses that take up, so if like, okay, so the lab, we got 200 acres. We could have 80 different businesses. Each one needs 200 acres and they're all happening on the same 200 acres.
Yep. And you
And
might have and the way this combines is so you're one person's doing market garden, the other person's raising poultry. The market garden might have some bad stuff left over from the market garden. They sell it to the poultry guy for a couple chickens or whatever for
sure.
food. And then that's feeding the chickens. And then they're going to farmers market or whatever to sell this stuff. Well, now
Yeah.
they can team up and transport together instead of separately. Things like that.
All right. So the system where they had 3,000 broilers and so they got the 3,000 broilers are doing Salatin style chicken pins. And then you're asking me about like the egg mobile kind of a thing, which can be pulled around by the UTV. And I'm thinking like, yeah, there's some good stuff. I mean, there's things that bug me about it, but one of them is like, that's a lot of chickens. And I'm kind of thinking like, and I've raised that many chickens before. And I kind of think like, but when I did it, I was selling chickens, like I was selling meat for just a little bit more than what I was paying for the feed. And I was selling eggs for just a little bit more than I was paying for the feed. And so it was like, this business was not working out. And on top of that, I didn't like the fact that they were eating food that was like not good, not human grade food. And I kind of felt like a chicken's habitat includes shrubs and trees, and I needed a system with shrubs and trees, and that kind of. All right, but scaling it back, I think, is an important thing.
If you don't have them in shrubs and trees, now you have to worry about predators like hawks and stuff, and that's why you end up with or another reason you end up with the Joel Salatin style.
Some of that, yeah. They clearly did their chicken processing on site, and that looked like a very expensive operation that they had.
Yeah, it was. I was looking at the machinery that I've purchased that machinery before, and yep, it is expensive.
When I saw them doing electric fence, it looked like that they did not mow before putting up the fence, and so I was thinking like that's probably going to short out. But and then when we recorded the podcast, Julia pointed out like at one point they were grabbing chickens and throwing them into the fence, and she says maybe it's because it did short out the fence, and so the chickens got out, and then they're like having to go and round them all up.
Yep.
So, an expensive lesson. let's see. Oh, now I'm caught up to you. There's the shelters moved to the ATV.
Well, they one thing they said was, or Richard was saying, was that they run the educational facility, and they're looking for people who are driven by a desire to be a benefit, to be a beneficial person on the farm. So that I thought that was important because they were talking about, uh, and even the interns explained it when they were talking about when they first get there, they are overwhelmed and they're like, this is not how I pictured it, not how I imagined it, and I'm so glad I stuck it out because
Right.
it was such a great learning experience, and I just had to let go of trying to control everything and being in charge of something. I was not in charge of anything. I did a bunch of different things, and I just let go of the control, and I learned so much.
It seems like about 1% out of 10 who comes here desperately needs to control.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they haven't listened to the podcast. They haven't watched the videos. They haven't read the articles. They've never been on Permies before. I don't know how they even decide to come here. But those are the people that are kind of like, you're doing this wrong. You're doing that wrong. You're doing all these things wrong. And then they kind of believe they're here to fix everything. They're going to set it all straight now. But that's like just 1 out of 10. But when it comes to the interns, there were a couple of really fascinating things. One of them said, I have a hard time talking to my mom and dad. They're telling me, like, why are you working so hard somewhere and you're not getting any pay? And Julia was pointing out, like, I don't think it's even that they're not getting any pay. I think that the interns are paying to be there.
Yep.
And so then a gal that's here as a boot, she piped up and she said, my parents asked me the same thing about being here. And I think we did a podcast recently with Joseph Lofthouse, and he said such a critically important thing. He said, I don't let people help me anymore. I get all these people that want to come by and help me. Like they're going to, but really what they want to do is they want to learn, but they say they're coming to help me. And I say, no, I don't want any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they work with me elbow to elbow, I get less done in that day than if I just work by myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's 19 out of 20 people. There is that one person out of 20 where he will actually get more done in that day than if you work by himself. But 19 out of 20. So this is something that we've really been feeling, is that if we've got some stuff that needs to be done and we hire it out, it ends up costing us less than what we spend for
teaching someone how to do it.
Yeah, and it's like they're going to have to learn how to do it, and it's way better now that Fred's here. But it's an edge case now. It's like we might be almost. But the other thing is we are trying to build community. I would like to grow the future of permaculture here. I would like there to be, like, this is the spot where the 12 mega experts in permaculture come from. And it's because people came here, they practiced permaculture for 6 or 7 years, and they started to develop expertise in something. And next thing you know, they're leading the way in some aspect of permaculture. And that's a big part of the project of what we're doing here. And we got to build community to do that. And it's kind of like, okay, so this is the way. This is the way it has to be done. You don't hire it out, because you hire it out, those people are gone. But and the problem we've had is that people come and they participate in what we're doing, and we teach them a whole bunch of stuff, and then they leave.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, but we've got 2 people now that are sticking around, and it's kind of like, can we get to the point that there's 4? And once we have 4, can we get to 8? And once we get to 8, can we get to 16? And it's like, this is how you start it. And we're learning a lot about, drama, and you got to come up with ways to mitigate that. I think we're doing really good at mitigating that, but it's still going to come.
One thing that Richard said was, I'm not looking for very skilled people, because if I have very skilled people, I have to undo a whole lot of thinking. So he's designing this market garden, and at the same time, his intern Matthew is posting a book on marketing garden, and that's when the market gardener, or that's the book that. So that's the basic is like, I don't want to. I'd rather take someone that doesn't think they know what they're doing, and teach them, because that's quicker than taking someone that thinks they already know what's up and trying to teach them my way. And then, so while this is happening, his example is his intern Richard, who now runs the Market Garden, had posted a book, The Market Gardener, online. Richard saw it and then asked him, "Would you like
Yeah.
to be my market manager, market garden manager on the farm?"
Right.
And of course, his intern saying, uh, "You know, I." I was a truck driver before I got here. Like, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing.
I've read one book. That's
Yeah.
it.
That was like, perfect. That's what I want. That's what we need. And so I thought that was inspirational to see. But you're right. But Richard probably could have hired a professional market gardener who would do it his way, the way he knows how to do it. And it probably would have been cheaper than the 5 years of interning and getting this guy going and getting through it. Even though the guy's paying to be there, it probably would have been cheaper to just hire someone to do it right off the bat and get it going right away.
Another thing that an intern said is that friends in college are campaigning for
Yeah.
like political stuff.
Yep.
And
That's
and
just
I think
great.
it was a woman, and she was saying, I'm just as passionate about all those things, but I just don't think that is going to work as much as what I'm doing here. And so
She said,
she's not comfortable with that approach.
what she says is, I watched my friends campaign for things I was also passionate about. The problem is, campaign based organizing still leaves the power in someone else's hands.
Yeah.
It leaves people without sovereignty, still asking someone else to give something they should already have the right to. We are a lot stronger by making a decision by ourselves, than deepening or depending on a state to provide us with our needs. That was a great quote.
So now we're getting into the best stuff. I mean, it's like the movie just got better and better and better. And I felt that the best stuff was in like the last 20 minutes of the whole damn thing. And it was like, this is where we're starting to get into the most profound and important stuff. So one is that that like where they had that little treehouse looking thing, which, it was painted and stuff, and I wish it wasn't. Different standards. But he said he's trying to transform this conifer forest into a deciduous forest.
Yep.
And it's like, that's what I'm trying to do too. I have way too many trees. So let's build a whole lot of wafatis so we can get these trees out of here and start growing the kind of trees that grow, permaculture food forests. Let's see.
When he talks about the oak tree and the grass,
Mm-hmm.
that was great, because he's saying the oak tree moves water through its trunk at 1 meter per
Oh,
minute,
right.
to supply the leaves with moisture and for respiration. A
Right.
single ryegrass at full photosynthesis moves water 25 centimeters per second, which makes them good at capturing solar and putting carbon in from the atmosphere into the soils. And one thing, yeah, he didn't like seeing was that there's so many systems out there with our livestock where we're harvesting the grass and then feeding it to them, rather than just putting them out on the grass
Yeah.
so that the grass can capture as much carbon as possible.
I want to contest the 25 centimeters per second. That seems really fast. But okay, that is what was said in the movie.
He was saying
Um,
photosynthesis when that happens.
so
Like
now
his son is like direct sun.
I like the part. There used to be in that neighborhood, there used to be large families eating at a large table. And now you don't see people in the field or even on the road. And I thought, wow, that's profound. So they're like, he thinks that a lot of his neighbors are observing them and thinking it's really cool because they see people in the field and they have a dozen people at their table 3 times a day. And so he's kind of feeling like he's bringing back the old way, and that there's a cool thing about that. There's a big upside. But of course, what we've evolved to is everybody's compartmentalized and everybody kind of ignores each other.
Yep.
And so I thought that was rather huge and profound.
Well, he takes that further when he finishes the movie. I don't know if we want to get to there yet, but what he says about Gracie.
Now I want to talk about Richard's wife.
Okay.
And what she said. So she used to live on a community farm project.
I thought it was multiple. I thought she was saying there was
She
multiple.
may have lived on more than one, but okay, let's just talk about what she said was that she used to live on this community farm project, but they were so busy with all their community shit that nobody did any farming.
Yep.
And so it's like, so let's see, the community part was taking up all the time. And then she met Richard. And now clearly they're getting shit done.
And then they started going into the hierarchy.
That was Richard.
Yeah.
And so Richard kind of said nature is hierarchy. And then that's why so you got the idea, that's why they do hierarchy at the farm. It's a central leader system. Richard's in charge. And so it's like, but it is certainly a community. There's 12 people there sharing a table, 3 meals a day, every day. That is community. And there were, it seemed like most of the people there were like thinking like that they are in heaven. This is as good as it gets in the world. And then the ones that weren't quite on board, they were kind of like a little bit like, well, I wish it could be like a little different from this. And it sounded like what we were talking about earlier, like some people just need to be in control. and it did kind of sound like, yeah, this is okay. I'm going to leave here and I'm going to do it right, which I think that's cool. That's cool. That's the best. It's like you come here, you do it our way, you suffer, and then you leave and you go start your own thing that's doing it what you believe is the right way. But now when you listen to Richard talking, it just sounds like he's been down that road of hard knocks. And then this is the way to do it. Because I kind of feel like a lot of people, when they start out at level 1, they're like, oh, we should all do consensus. The only way to do it is consensus.
Right.
And it's like, then people who have done consensus are kind of like, never again, man. Never again. It's like, because in order for consensus to work well, it's like everybody has to be noble, but everybody's human. And it's like, and all the comedy that every human being brings to the table all gets mixed up and it all turns into a big comedy instead of a profitable farm. So Richard talks about, and he also said you have to throw out all the old contrived ways of doing community building. He called them contrived.
Oh,
How beautiful was that?
I don't remember him saying that. I'll have to watch it again. I mean, I got the time marker in here, right where he's talking about all right. So what I have is that his wife says Richard has a clear plan and amazing ability to put the plan into action.
Yeah.
And Richard says, I run a hierarchy system. No single piece can be removed without affecting the whole. Everything is a pattern to take care of the whole, but nothing does not take care of itself first.
Right.
Work, play, rest, and learning are all one big fun thing called life. I feel like a kid every day jumping from one project to the next. And then the intern, I don't remember if this was the intern or his wife, but says some days it can feel like work, but it was the intern. but it is work that is super simple and doable, where we create food and beneficial effect that you can see. Like flipping compost turns into a market garden into delicious food, things like that. So, um, I don't remember him saying anything else about community besides what she had said. I don't remember him commenting on it. I'm gonna have to watch that part again.
Okay. Well,
But
you've watched it 3 times now.
yeah, it must have been a really quick mention by him. Um, what he says is, "I'm doing this so that I can tell my grandchildren I was aware of this global system crash and I did something about it." That's what one of
Yeah.
the interns said.
One of the interns. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it closes with Gracie and Richard on a fishing boat. And Richard says, this is my idea of how a kid should grow up. This is the root foundation for the whole thing, like why I'm doing all of this. When I was 15, I decided I wanted to live on the land because that is how a kid should be raised, on the land. It is natural in all of us, but it gets dampened out by social pressures, parents, and friends. Gracie here can get into anything she wants without or with whatever focus she wants, as long as it's beneficial to the whole. That was great. That was a great quote.
So I've skipped over probably half of my notes,
Me
trying
too.
to stick to the best parts. So I've got
Other than that,
other podcast is a full 2 hours, and we covered each little speck of notes. But I do want to wrap up by saying, like, the music was great, the photography was great, the content was great. Overall, it's great, great, great. I wish we were selling it on the Permies.com digital market. But I saw that it is available at Amazon. It's like $30 or something like that to get the DVD. I imagine that, anyway, all right.
It's well worth it. The two big things that we skipped that I kind of wanted to talk about, but we just don't have time, is the yeoman's plow, the key line plowing, and the tree line row cropping, and then Angus, the intern Angus, who does the field studies. But anyway, you'll just have to watch the DVD to learn more. It's definitely worth it. Let's see, the Gracie's Backyard. I'm just going to pull up the website here for you guys so you know where to get it. It's at possiblemedia.org. And I'll just share screen here. And I guess it's on Amazon as well. But there you go.
And they also
$7.50 US.
Is that like a rental for $7.50?
It's probably the digital download. Yep, 720p digital download.
Okay.
Or you can get 1080p download, or the DVDs are $15.
Okay. So, and then they're also the people that made Permaculture Orchard, for which I am the supreme executive producer with Bacon, Cheese, and Sparkles.
They're putting out good stuff. That was a great documentary as well. I really enjoyed talking with Steven from Permaculture Orchard. You can find him on the Permethos YouTube channel. Just look for the PTV presentations, and you'll see that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed today's show. Please let us know what you think. If you want to see more like this, more reviews, what you want to see us review, things like that, we're happy to do it. Thanks, everybody, for all the participation in chat. Glad to have everybody be on board. Once again,
now we're going to go and do the thing with just these people, with the inner circle people, and we'll tell them what we really think.
Exactly. Yeah. So once again, sign up for Paul's Patreon or head over to thrivethrough.com, join the Permaculture Smackdown Club. You'll get access to our special box thing here. Before and after the show, we talk specifically with these folks off the record, off recording, and share maybe things we wouldn't say otherwise in public. All right. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.